What if the most devastating moment of your life isn't a scream, but a song? A melody that becomes the soundtrack to your unraveling. This isn't just a story, it's a testament to the quiet ways love dies, and how the truth, once buried, always finds its stage. The worst part? The DJ had just unleashed our anthem. That one track we'd claimed, branded as uniquely ours. And there she was, Myra Aldridge, 30, a vision in crimson, moving to its rhythm. Not with me, Ethan Lockwood, 32, but with him. I stood a mere dozen feet away, still clutching her tiny sequined evening bag, a relic she'd handed me earlier like I was a glorified accessory holder. Everyone else pulsed with the bass, a vibrant sea of bodies, but I was rooted to the spot, a silent sentinel watching her slender frame melt into his. Her lips formed the lyrics, eyes closed, a private communion. He twirled her, effortless and practiced, as if they'd perfected this routine 100 times. Perhaps they had. And me? I could have been part of the club's decor, utterly invisible. There was no explosive confrontation, no car-bound shouting match, no dramatic scene of torn fabrics or hurled phones. It was this agonizing, deliberate erasure of me unfolding in real time. I should have vanished then, slipped out unnoticed, but a strange compulsion held me captive. I watched the entire song, from its opening beat to its final fade, forcing every second into my memory, an unassailable archive. Later, there would be no room for doubt, no justification for forgiveness. When the bass swelled, she chuckled, a soft sound, and her fingers grazed his jaw. As the chorus soared, both her arms encircled his neck, and when the very last note dissolved into the club's din, her gaze still didn't seek me out. So, I ghosted, through a discreet side exit. No farewells, no drama, just me, her neglected clutch, and the relentless echo of that song vibrating behind my eyes. That's how it began. Not with a clandestine hotel tryst, not with a furtive text, but with a single dance that illuminated a devastating truth. I was no longer the man she desired. And believe me, the true unraveling was only just beginning. The air outside the downtown lounge bit with a peculiar coldness, not the bracing chill of winter, but an emptiness, as if the universe itself was granting me desolate space to process, and I resented it fiercely. I drifted aimlessly down the slick city street, her clutch still tethered to my hand, a dark, velvet joke I couldn't comprehend. My instinct screamed to abandon it in the nearest bin, but a stubborn part of me clung on. Habit? Fear? I couldn't say. Barely 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message. "Where did you go?" Then another. "I didn't mean for it to look that way." And finally, "Please come back." I didn't respond, not to punish her, but because the words had simply deserted me. What do you even say when the person you've loved shows you, without uttering a single sound, that you are utterly dispensable? My feet, surprisingly, led me home. There was no conscious decision, just a relentless forward motion until I found myself inserting the key into the lock of our shared apartment, the one we'd chosen 2 years prior. "This will be our fresh start," Myra had declared then, her voice brimming with hope. I stepped inside, placed her clutch on the sleek glass coffee table, and stared at the framed photograph on the wall. Us, beaming, sun-kissed, high on cheap Vermont wine. The Ethan in that photo, his eyes still held the innocent belief that Myra's sparkle was solely for him. I sank onto the sofa, enveloped by a suffocating silence. The text continued, now more frantic, punctuated by calls. I let them ring. My mind was consumed by the image of her head tilted back in laughter with him, the perfect, rehearsed way her hips met his. It wasn't just the dance, it was the entire tableau, the profound familiarity, the unburdened joy, the conspicuous absence of guilt. Around midnight, a strange resolve stirred within me. I rose and did something I never imagined I'd do. I found a stray piece of paper and a pen. I wrote a note, not to wound her, not to accuse, but to articulate a quiet, irrefutable truth. You pretended not to notice, but you weren't supposed to choreograph our song with someone else. You did. And now you'll dance alone. I left the note beside her clutch. Then I walked into our bedroom, pulled out an overnight bag, packed only the essentials, and left. No dramatic slam of the door, no furious deletion of our digital memories. I even left my toothbrush behind. That night I checked into a nondescript motel on the edge of town. The bathroom harbored a persistent damp smell, and the bed creaked as if bearing judgment. But it was quiet. More importantly, it was mine. Solely mine. By the time the first sliver of dawn painted the horizon, my phone held 10 voicemails. One, Myra was sobbing, another screaming, a raw, furious sound. But the last one, the very last, was hushed. A fragile whisper. "Ethan, I don't know how to fix this." And for the first time, I whispered back, just to myself, "Perhaps you're not meant to." I didn't expect her to seek me out at the motel. I assumed she'd grieve for a night, perhaps craft a few dramatic social media posts, then resume her life as if I were a minor, easily forgotten inconvenience. But by noon, the front desk clerk called. A woman was inquiring about me. I instructed him to say I wasn't present. He didn't ask questions. Likely, I wasn't his first client looking to vanish in plain sight. Instead of reappearing, Myra initiated a different kind of game. Not one of apologies or heartfelt confessions, but a meticulous rewriting of our narrative. Later that day, my cousin Patrick Reynolds called. His voice was laced with confusion. "Man, Myra told us you stormed out of the party like a total lunatic. Said you got jealous over nothing?" He paused, waiting. "That true?" I was paralyzed, unable to formulate a response. Jealous over nothing? I had stood there, watching her body intertwine with his, as if they'd rehearsed for weeks. I saw her vanish into another man's arms while our song played, a cruel parody of everything we once were. If that's nothing, then what exactly is something? "She's lying," I managed, my voice a hollow whisper. Patrick offered no further comment, just a heavy sigh. Then a quiet, "You okay?" Was I? I honestly didn't know. Anger simmered, yes. But beneath that, a profound embarrassment. Not just at her actions, but at my own complicity in becoming so easily overlooked. I had morphed into the kind of man no one defends in a story, the forgettable husband, the supporting character in my own marriage. That night, against my better judgment, I checked her social media. Curiosity, self-sabotage, pick your poison. On her story, a curated glimpse of her, back at home, wine glass in hand. The caption biting, "People always show their true colors eventually. Let them." Here's what no one tells you about betrayal. It's rarely about malice, often about convenience. It worsened. A mutual friend posted a group selfie. Myra, front and center, smiling a little too widely for a woman whose marriage was supposedly in freefall. And the man she danced with? Graham Daniels. There in the background, nursing a beer, looking utterly at ease, utterly belonging. That smile of hers, it wasn't sorrow, it was liberation. And just like that, I saw the false narrative she spun for everyone. I was controlling, stifling her career, perpetually boring. She cast herself as the victim of a passionless union, a trapped bird finally spreading its wings. But the greater lie, the one she told herself, was that I would passively allow her to rewrite my story. So I did the one thing she never anticipated. I began writing the truth. 2 days after my disappearance, I received a phone call not intended for me. It came as I sat on the edge of that squeaky motel bed, eating vending machine trail mix, staring at the ceiling as if it held the answers I desperately sought. The screen illuminated, "Unknown caller." I almost ignored it, but a prickle of intuition made me answer. A brief pause, then a familiar voice. Male, sharp, too smooth to be genuinely kind. "Hey, Myra. Just wanted to say last night was truly unforgettable. Can't believe he actually showed up. Thought you said he was too boring to even bother with." A chuckle. My heart seized. "Anyway, don't stress. You handled it perfectly. I'll cover for you if anyone at the office starts asking questions." Click. He must have realized his mistake, The call abruptly terminated. I remained frozen, phone pressed to my ear, as if moving too quickly might siphon the air from my lungs. He had called me, and in doing so, confirmed every lurking suspicion my gut had whispered for weeks. Every dark thought I hadn't fully allowed myself to believe. I had names now, a voice, undeniable proof. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, a strange stillness crept over me, a chilling calm, as if my body had finally caught up with the brutal truth. I wasn't merely collateral damage in some emotional drift. I was being replaced with cold calculation, with coordinated effort. I wanted to call her, to unleash a torrent of rage, to demand if all those nights she'd claimed, "I'm just tired," were spent tangled in someone else's sheets. But I didn't. I refused to grant her the satisfaction of knowing I still cared that deeply. Instead, I replayed that voicemail over and over. His voice, her implied silence. The devastating lie of our marriage woven into the background, spoken by a man who barely bothered to hide it. That same afternoon, I packed my paltry belongings and checked out. I couldn't endure another moment in that stale room, surrounded by phantom cigarette smoke and dusty curtains, while she danced through her new reality as if nothing had happened. I didn't go home. I drove to my brother Julian Rivers' place, a man whose life always appeared far more anchored than mine. He let me in without a single question, offering only a long, silent hug and a couch that seemed to absorb my exhaustion without judgment. "Whatever it is," Julian said, draping a heavy blanket over me, "you're allowed to fall apart here. No timelines, no pretense." That night, I drafted a message to Myra. Short, final. "You dance through my silence. You won't dance through my absence." I didn't send it. Not yet. I wanted her to feel the crushing weight of that quiet, because what she didn't know was that my grieving was done. Now I was watching, I was listening, and I was going to ensure she finally saw the man she thought she could erase. 3 days bled into each other. The message remained unsent, her calls unanswered. I observed from a distance, quietly dismantling the version of her I thought I knew. Layer by painful layer, her voicemail shifted tone. Initially, she was furious, then bewildered, then abruptly a chilling calm, a carefully constructed composure, utterly unaffected. I knew that tone well. It was the one she used when lying to her mother on the phone. But the real seismic shift came with an email from a corporate account, an automated invitation to a private company dinner, a quarterly celebration for top-performing departments. The sender, Graham Daniels, the same voice from that accidental voicemail. The name clicked instantly. He'd sent the invite to the shared email address Myra and I once used for couples events and RSVP tracking. She must have forgotten to remove me, or perhaps he simply assumed I was entirely out of the picture. Either way, I wasn't supposed to see it, which is precisely why I showed up. I borrowed a sharp navy blazer from Julian and shaved, the first time in days. Catching my reflection, I felt absurd, like a foot soldier marching to war armed with a dessert spoon. But I wasn't there to create a scene. I wasn't there to win her back. I simply wanted her to see me, truly see me, and grasp the magnitude of what she had so carelessly discarded. The event was hosted at a sleek, minimalist rooftop bar downtown, dimly lit, all glass walls and expensive furniture, striving too hard for understated chic. I arrived 10 minutes early, positioning myself near the back. I watched them all filter in. Myra, radiant as ever, her laughter a little too loud at Graham's jokes. She wore the same fitted black gown she'd once sworn she'd never wear without me, claiming it was our anniversary dress. That particular detail stung more than I anticipated. She didn't spot me initially. Graham handed her a drink, his hand lingering intimately on the small of her back, a proprietary gesture. She didn't recoil. She smiled. That smile again, the one that once made me believe in endless possibilities. And then she saw me. Her face froze mid-laugh, the color draining. She didn't blink, just stood there, glass suspended, while the world around her continued its oblivious dance. I said nothing. Just a single deliberate nod. Then I walked past them towards the bar. I ordered water, engaging in trivial small talk with a stranger about the unseasonable weather. I could feel her eyes like twin lasers searing into my spine. Finally, she approached, her voice a tremor. "What are you doing here?" I turned slowly, met her gaze directly. "Didn't you invite me?" Graham appeared moments later, clearly oblivious, still sporting his confident grin. "Hey there, I'm Greg. You must be with finance or dev, right?" I extended my hand, my voice level. "Ethan Lockwood, Myra's husband." The silence that descended was absolute, crushing. Gregory's smile fractured, piece by piece, in real time. Myra's hand dropped limply to her side. I watched the frantic calculations begin behind her eyes. The panic, the dawning regret, the rapid unraveling of her carefully constructed narrative. I finished my water, adjusted Julian's blazer, and leaned in close enough for only her to hear. "You danced with him as if I ceased to exist. Now let's see how beautifully you perform when I very much do." Then I walked out. Not because I was hurt, not anymore, but because for the first time in weeks, I no longer felt invisible. What if the most powerful move is simply showing up where you're not expected? The next morning, I awoke to 5 missed calls from Myra, 3 voicemails, and a rambling, accusatory text that began, "You completely embarrassed me," and concluded with, "Can we talk about this like adults?" I didn't reply. I wasn't playing games. I simply lacked the energy to console the person who had so thoroughly broken me. And honestly, I didn't believe she deserved comfort anymore. I went for a walk instead. No particular destination, just old streets I hadn't trodden in years. It's funny how grief propels you to wander, as if searching for the version of yourself that still believed everything was fine. As I passed an old record shop we used to frequent, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Myra. It was someone from her office, Dominic Maxwell. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity, that relentless beast, got the better of me. "Ethan," the voice was cautious. "Yes, this is Dominic. I work with Myra. We met briefly at the holiday mixer last year. Look, I know this is really out of left field, but I just wanted to say something. You didn't deserve any of that. Any of it." I paused, unsure how to respond. "You saw it," Dominic sighed. "We all saw it. Some of us had suspicions for a while, but after last night, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. And Greg? He looked like someone had kicked him in the teeth. The entire mood changed after you left." No one said anything out loud, but everyone knew. That hit differently. Not because I cared about her coworkers' opinions. I didn't, but because it meant the narrative she so desperately tried to control was slipping irrevocably from her grasp. People were beginning to see the truth, and she couldn't spin it fast enough to stem the tide. Dominic continued, his tone softer now. "For what it's worth, I think you showing up like that, it wasn't petty, it was powerful." I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sank onto a nearby park bench, realizing my hands were trembling again. Not from sorrow, not anymore, but from something else entirely. A strange, potent clarity. For weeks I had been drowning in her silence, her evasion, her performance. Now she was the one scrambling, trying to explain, trying to regain control. That same afternoon, I began forwarding the voicemail Gregory had accidentally left me to a select few. Not everyone, just the right ones. Her direct mentor, her HR manager, her team lead. No commentary, no threats, just the unadorned audio. Casual, smug, undeniable. Let her deal with that fallout. Let her feel what it's like when your meticulously curated mask begins to slip in front of the wrong audience. By evening, another message from her. "We need to talk. I'm begging you, Ethan. Please." This one arrived devoid of lecture or blame, imbued only with fear and desperation. But I didn't reply. Because what do you say to someone who only wants to talk once they're the one being watched? She danced with him as if I didn't exist, but now every step she took was being noticed, scrutinized, remembered, and I still hadn't uttered a single public word. Think about this. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any accusation. 3 days after the dinner, she appeared at Julian's place. No warning, no call, just a persistent knock on the door around 7 in the evening. Julian peered through the peephole, then turned to me, his face flat. It's her. I didn't even need to ask who. Her frantic rhythm of knocking betrayed a desperation, as if she was trying to outrun the consequences that had finally, inevitably, caught up. I didn't move at first. I didn't want to see her face. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing where I was, or worse, that she could still evoke any emotion in me. But Julian opened the door anyway. He's here, he stated, stepping aside like a weary referee forced to host both combatants. But say one lie and you're out. Myra stepped inside, mascara smudged beneath her eyes, hands trembling. She looked ravaged, but not with the kind of devastation that springs from true regret. This wasn't about our marriage. This was about her reputation. Her carefully constructed world was cracking, and she was scrambling to prevent the pieces from slipping through her fingers. She barely glanced at me, her gaze fixed on the floor as she uttered, "You sent that voicemail to HR." I offered no answer. The silence made her shift uncomfortably. "They've suspended him," she continued, her voice thin, "and now they're opening an investigation into me." Still, I remained silent. What was there to say? She hadn't come to apologize. She had come to salvage the charred remnants of her public image. "You really want to destroy my entire life over a dance?" she finally snapped, her tears turning acidic. And that was the precise moment I broke. "That's what you think this is about, a dance?" I stood, my voice staying low, though my heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird. "It wasn't a dance, Myra. It was a public execution. You buried me with your smile while he spun you around like he'd already won." Her eyes filled again, but this time she remained speechless. I pressed on. "You lied to everyone. You painted me as controlling, dull, jealous, and all I ever did was love you in quiet ways you never even noticed. I showed up when I wasn't wanted, just to remind you that I existed. You wanted to rewrite the story?" I just handed them the prologue. She finally looked up, her gaze meeting mine. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I shook my head slowly. "No, you just didn't think I'd fight back." And then I did something I hadn't planned. I pulled out the small, crisp envelope I'd been carrying in my blazer pocket. The divorce papers, already printed, awaiting my signature. I handed them to her and stepped back. "I'm done dancing for someone who never saved me a song." She didn't take them at first. She just stared, her eyes wide, but she didn't utter a no. And that told me everything I needed to know. She didn't love me. She simply loathed being the one left behind. She never signed the papers in front of me. She simply stood there, trembling, clutching the envelope as if it might dissolve if she held it too tightly. Julian didn't utter a word. He merely stood behind me, arms crossed, a silent witness to the final act of a slow-burning disaster. Myra finally whispered, her voice barely audible, "Is there really no way back from this?" I looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time in months, that aching weight in my chest was gone. Not anger, not desperation, just a profound, quiet peace. "There's no going back to something that never truly included me in the first place," I said. "You danced past me for so long that you forgot I ever knew the steps." Her tears flowed freely now, but they weren't the kind that begged for forgiveness. They were the tears of someone who realized they had pushed too far and found no one left to pull them back. That night she departed quietly. No grand speeches, no more pleading. Just a soft click of the door. And finally the silence felt entirely mine. Weeks turned into months, too. I stayed at Julian's until I found a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Nothing opulent, just a quiet street, a charming coffee shop around the corner, and enough space to breathe without feeling the crushing need to prove my worth. I started sketching again, something I hadn't touched since college. I reconnected with friends I'd lost in the blur of being Myra's husband. I even joined a book club of all things. I wasn't attempting to become a different man. I was simply rediscovering the one I'd buried beneath her spotlight. One crisp afternoon, walking past that familiar record shop, I finally stepped inside. I bought a vinyl we used to cherish, not for the ghost of a memory, but for me. And when its warm, rich notes filled my apartment later that night, I didn't think of her. I didn't recall that dance. I simply smiled. Because in the end, losing her wasn't the tragedy. Forgetting myself had been. And finding my way back, that was the quiet, unexpected miracle. This is what happens when you decide to take back your narrative.